Hello, students. Welcome to another examiner walkthrough video from Diplomaly. Today, we'll be going through the remainder of this case study called LuxiTourism Group, LG or LTG. This is a case study from Unit 1. This is a four-part video for this case study, and this video will look at specifically part C of this question from the case. The key topic that will be covered in this question include the main feature of the public held companies. And in a previous video, I already mentioned that this topic can be tested all the way up until an AO3 level. So you might want to check that video out to see what this means. And this is the case study that you should have access already on the site. And I've also briefly walked through this in the previous video. So make sure you had to listen to that and also have read this before watching this video. Okay, so the question that I'd like to have a look at here with you is the part C question, which is to explain one advantage and one disadvantage of LTG operating as a publicly held company. So this question is a 4-mark question with the command term explain. So what is important to remember is from my previous video, I talked about how the command term explain could be regarded as an AO1 command term, but also an AO2 command term, depending on the number of questions, number of the marks that's allocated, okay, to the question. Now, as you can see, this is a 4-mark response. So it means that this command term is now at the AO2 level. So if it's at an AO2 level, that means we expect your response to be 2 paragraphs long. Now, how do we allocate these 2 paragraphs? Let's take a look at the question and unpack it. Now, the question says you need to give one advantage, one disadvantage. So this already dictates paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 of your response, right? Okay, and it's asking you the advantage and disadvantages of LTG operating as a publicly held company. So this is the BM content that you need to be able to talk about, right? Now, for a 4-mark response, remember, each paragraph, you should take on the PEE plus I structure. So P represent the point, and in this case, this is the advantage or the disadvantage point. E is explaining the point. Now, this explanation could be in a very theoretical sense, meaning textbook style, okay? So 1 sentence. And then you have E, which is showing evidence or example. So what you want to look at is from the case study, can you link the advantage point to any evidence or example that's presented in the case? And I represents impact to the business or stakeholder. So as you can see, there is a pretty clear structure to this response because you have 1 sentence, 2 sentence, 3 sentence, and 4 sentences like that. Okay? So how is this question marked? Okay, it's marked as 2 plus 2, very standard 4-mark response, right? 4-marker. So that means you get 2 marks for each of the advantage and disadvantage point. So this gives you 2 marks. This gives you 2 marks. Now to break down the 2 marks for each paragraph, you get 1 mark for identifying and describing the advantage or disadvantage point. Your second mark comes from your ability to link and explain that advantage and disadvantage point to the context of the case. So meaning application. So don't forget this, because if you don't show any application, let's just say you wrote a sentence to identify the advantage and disadvantage, and you explain what those advantage and disadvantages are in a very textbook style, but you don't make reference and use the case information to explain your advantage and disadvantage point, the maximum you're going to get is only 2 out of 4. This is without application. But if you show, application for each of the points, then you have 4 out of 4. Okay, does that make sense? So let's take a look at an exemplar response. So you see in the first paragraph, okay, very, very clearly, you identify the advantage, right? One advantage of operating as a publicly held company is the ability to raise finance through selling shares. This is directly from the textbook, okay, or your notes that your teacher might have prepared for you, okay? So publicly held company, they can raise money, okay, by selling shares to the public. And that's exactly what LTG has done, right? So the second sentence, remember, extends and explain that advantage point. So for LTG, what does that mean? It means that, well, they had to raise money because Jessica said that she wants to build a new hotel, right? Uh, and to have these expansion plan, all of these require money. So that's why being a publicly held company would be advantageous for LTG because they can now use that money to support the high investment costs with the potential new hotel, right? It can help them tap into a broader pool of capital, making it easier to fund expansion plan. So you see very, very clearly these two sentences right here, okay? They are showing both the explanation of the advantage point and showing application at the same time. Now, I did say that, previously right here that you need to have a second sentence after identifying a point to explain the point. Now, what some very level 7 strong students do is they actually combine these two things together. So they do both of these things in 2 sentences. So instead of having, one sentence identifying the point, one sentence to explain the point, and then the third sentence to link it to the evidence, they usually do the second and the third sentence together, and they integrate the explanation with the application as well. And this is an example of how this is done, right? Right here, where you can see that, I'm explaining why it's important or the advantage of raising money because it supports the building of the new hotel because they need the money, right? And they're able to access more capital by selling shares to the public, right? And then the fourth sentence, remember, you need to link it to the impact on the business, right? And that impact could be on the business itself or on specific stakeholders, right? Now, it doesn't have to be both. You can talk about either one of them, but you do need to have some sort of link to that impact, right? So here, by having access to the public capital market, so the stock exchange, LTG now has greater financial flexibility, right? And they can now have more steady profitability to help them support their growth. So here, the impact is on the business, which is LTG. Okay? And this impact, remember, if you're talking about an advantage, the impact should be a positive impact. Okay? If it's a disadvantage, then it'd be a negative impact on the business. Does that make sense? So if you take a look at the next paragraph, okay, again, you start off with one disadvantage, very clear to the examiner what you're talking about. Now, the disadvantage of being a publicly held company is that you need to manage many different pressures and expectations from different stakeholders. So there's added complexity and pressure that comes with managing additional stakeholders. With, LTG's case, if they're going to invest money, right, and they're trying to raise funds to invest into this new hotel, they also need to respond to their shareholders and make sure that these shareholders, are putting in money for the right reason and for them to become profitable, right? So what you see is here is that, it says this can create pressure to prioritize short-term results over long-term strategic decisions because shareholders would be expecting some sort of profitability, right? Or profits from the money that they put in to invest into this business. So what this means is that LTG might have to prioritize dividend payouts. Now, remember, dividends, okay, in one of my previous videos, I talked about how dividends are only distributed at the discretion of the board of director. So it's not a requirement, but you do want to make sure that your shareholders are happy, because if they're not happy, what they can do is they can sell the shares, right? And your company will have less funds for you to expand and grow, right? And LGT doesn't want that to happen, right? Because they want to make sure that their shareholders are happy. So they do need to consider maybe perhaps that they might need to prioritize giving them a dividend payout, okay? Every now and then, okay, to keep them interested in continuing to invest into the business. So what that means is, as a publicly held company, because you're not only responsible for your own self, okay, or your partners, or a small group of shareholders, like a privately held company, you've got a lot of interests, a lot of stakeholder interests that you need to cater to. So that added complexity creates not just stress, but also difficulties in managing everyone's interests, right? So as a result, the impact on the business is that the company might struggle to balance the interests of stakeholders whilst staying true to its vision and growth. So it means that although the business wants to grow, they do need to make sure that they are also listening to the needs of stakeholder, because this helps create a sustainable business. And you might remember that sustainability is one of the key concepts in this course, right? So you don't need to use the word, but if you want to use the word, that's fine. Okay, you don't get brownie points for this at all, but it is a good idea to think about why it's important to keep a business sustainable. Okay, so I hope this response was helpful for you. Thanks for watching this video, and please feel free to browse around the Diplomaly site for more resources, and I will see you next time.